Good afternoon to you. 506, make that 306 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Good to have you with us today. We've got Pat Fallon joining us, the congressman, at 3:30. He'll talk about the hearing he attended today where the Secret Service briefed him on how they got bupkis. Nothing, nada, no subjects, no suspects in the cocaine scandal that rocked the planet at the White House. How about that? He'll give us the update on that. Simon Atiba is here at 4 o'clock, the chief White House correspondent for Today News Africa. The Biden White House looking to ban him more fervently than they're looking for the person who left the cocaine behind. And then Kyle Seraphin joins us at 5 o'clock today, the former FBI agent, FBI whistleblower, host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast. He'll react to everything Christopher Wray had to say yesterday. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Secret Service doesn't know who left the cocaine in a highly secure area of the White House. They just have no idea. Well, they have some idea, but they say they've narrowed the list of suspects down to just 500 people. It's been 11 days since the blow was found, and they say they've only been able to narrow it down to 500 people. What does this tell you about the security of the White House, of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? If this were to be believed, what does this tell you about just how secure that facility is? The answer would be not very. If you could, well, we've got a list of 500 people to sort through, and it's just impossible to know. Why is it impossible to know? Well, they say there was no fingerprints or DNA found on a plastic baggie, which, what's the phrase? It beggars belief. I don't know about that. A plastic baggie, not a single fingerprint to be found. Somebody stuffed it in a locker, locked it up, and then that was it. What is going on here? No DNA, no trace DNA found. This person was just they were carefully handling the baggie of cocaine all the way up until the point they brought it into the White House and they left it behind? No, it sounds like they carelessly brought it with them. That's the implication. And then they left it behind. So I would assume their fingers would be all over the baggie. Nope. Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound like every investigation of substance that you would be interested in getting answers to, always ending without a conclusion, or we're just going to have to close the case? Oh, yeah, sure. There were 500 suspects, so it's impossible to know. Oh, no fingerprints. Oh, okay. No DNA found on the baggie. Oh, shoot. Oh, all the cameras were turned off. Got it. Oh, the guards were asleep? Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, they falsified the records of their rounds. The baggie was left alone, even though it was told the rule was that somebody needed to be with the baggie at all times. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. None of this makes sense, which leads us to today's conclusion. They're lying. They're lying. That there's a cover-up going on yet again here. The Secret Service concluded its investigation into the cocaine found at the White House, and agents were unable to find a suspect, the Associated Press reporting today. The bag of cocaine was discovered in the White House on July 2nd, and the Secret Service was conducting an investigation with fingerprints and DNA testing. A report released Thursday said the probe ended with no viable suspects, despite the Secret Service looking at visitor logs and surveillance footage of hundreds of individuals, the outlet reported. The agents were also not able to identify what day the illicit substance was even left in the West Wing cubby near the Situation Room, CNN reports, and the leading theory is that the cocaine was left by a visitor. Visitors to the White House are required to present ID and have to sign up a minimum of 21 days in advance for background checks. Bags of any kind, including clutches and fanny packs, not allowed, White House guidance reads. Without physical evidence, the investigation will not be able to single out a person of interest from the hundreds of individuals who passed through the vestibule where the cocaine was discovered. That's what the Secret Service officials reportedly said today. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is incredulous, meaning he doesn't believe this. He said that this is a farce today, he told Fox. Quote, "You can't tell me in the White House with 24/7 surveillance in a cubbyhole by a Situation Room that they don't know who delivered it there." We should get an answer to the question, says McCarthy. It just seems to me that in America today, anything involving Biden Inc. gets treated differently than anything else, and that shouldn't be the case. And yet it is. The Babylon Bee with a headline on this today. D.C. police say they may never discover who left the bag of cocaine labeled property of H. Biden at White House. There's just no way to know. I do like how part of the saga involved telling us that it was right near Kamala Harris's parking spot. Remember that? When the story changed yet again and they said, it is right near where the vice president of the United States is dropped off at the White House. So perhaps it belongs to Kamala Harris. Maybe it's hers. Maybe she left this thing behind. Or maybe her dealer just never closed the deal with Kamala. So these are the many theories, but this is where this issue is going to remain, apparently, just in the realm of theories, as the Secret Service decides that it would be too much work to get to the bottom of who came and went and dropped off cocaine in one of the most secure buildings, or at least we've been told, on the planet. Let's see. Let's take a phone call. We've got Danny calling in D.C., just like so many, 888-630-9625. Danny, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir. Danny. Are we getting a Danny through? Going once, going twice? All right, let me take Jeff in Hagerstown. Let's try that. Let's see if it was the individual phone call or our phone lines entirely. Line 3, Jeff in Hagerstown.
Yeah, I'm here, Vince. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Great, Jeff. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Outstanding. Okay, so I guess this puts a whole new meaning to the term White House. And am I to understand it was like narrowed down to, it could have been 500 people? I think that's what the screener said.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that's Hunter Biden and 499 of his snow-blowing buddies. How about that?
Snow-blowing. Well, wasn't Hunter Biden just at a big state dinner recently alongside Merrick Garland? Everyone showing up at the White House, hanging out. There are a lot of suspects here. And the Secret Service says, it's just too difficult to get to the bottom of it, Jeff.
They're all a bunch of cokeheads, man. Come on, man. They've been, let's face it.
All right, Jeff. Thank you. The White House. A little emphasis on the white. Let's take Danny in D.C. now. He's back on line 6. Danny, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. Late last week they said that, the entrance of the West Wing where this was found to be the closest to where the baggie was found, the vice president enters through that area.
Yes, I was saying it's right near Kamala's parking space. It's right exactly where she enters the building.
The thing is, anybody with 10% brain function right now can figure out that the Biden-appointed Secretary of the Treasury, which is the parent of the Secret Service, has told them to shut up and stand down. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, are they still? I'm sorry, I'm running this through my head. Is the Treasury Department still in charge of the Secret Service, or did that move over to DHS? I thought that was the shift that was made.
Well, again, we've got Mayorkas, who's the secretary of that, and he's also a Biden appointee.
Yeah.
This is all about
you're exactly right.
Right now.
You're exactly right. Yeah, that's right. The Secret Service was originally under the Treasury Department. It was moved to the Department of Homeland Security. But you're totally right. Mayorkas, not much better here.
Yeah, and then when they were like, Hunter Biden was there Friday, but they said that he wasn't there Friday, and this was all information that wasn't even asked about. It was volunteered by Cringe. But, the thing is, they should have popped them immediately with a test because right now it's too damn late.
Yeah, and with each passing day, it gets even harder and harder and more undetectable. Thank you, Danny.
They've been told to stand down. You got it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Something's afoot here. They wrapped it up in no time. It's just too difficult. You remember that Politico piece that came out as this story began? You remember that? The piece that said the Secret Service may never find the suspect? That came out, that was within 24 hours of this story going public. Maybe 48 hours, because I remember those first 24 hours, the media tried to ignore it entirely. Within 48 hours, Politico had a report up. Sources say the Secret Service may never find who brought the coke to the White House. It's like, dude, you haven't even given anybody a chance to look yet. They haven't even, put their detective monocle in. It's not. They haven't started. They haven't picked up their magnifying glass to begin the search, and you're telling me that they may never get to the bottom of this? Let me take Greg in Manassas, line 7 now. Greg, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, how you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, I watch a lot of ID investigative discovery, and they track people down by DNA off of like almost anything. You put your fingers on a plastic bag, they get your DNA off of that. They can take the plastic bag, put it in the microwave oven with the crazy glue, and the fingerprints pop out on that. And it's such a simple thing to do, and they're just not doing it. They don't care. They think we're morons, and the other people are like just don't care. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it sure is.
We
All
know they're
right.
lying.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, I did see a bunch of people who know better than I do, certainly, pointing out that plastic baggies are actually typically a good medium for fingerprints. That you can actually pick a fingerprint off of a plastic bag with some more ease than say other substances. But apparently not this time. Greg, thank you very much.
No, they just don't care what we think. They don't care.
I'm with you, brother. All right, let me take Dennis in Annapolis now, line 8. Dennis, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Always enjoy your show. Unfortunately, the FBI and the Secret Service have lost all credibility in, I think, most patriotic Americans' opinions. And so nobody believes what they say anymore. Like they can't find anything regarding the cocaine find in the White House. The FBI's involvement in the Hunter Biden laptop and the Russia hoax. Nobody believes them anymore. The FBI director yesterday, evasive.
Yes.
You just get the feeling that he doesn't have the answers. I'll get back to you. Doesn't know much. Nobody believes them. They're so corrupt that nobody believes.
It's so crazy, isn't it? It's so, and the reason you have that conclusion is because your eyes are open and your brain functions. You're watching as your government is routinely used to abuse people based on their political affiliations, and that's not the way this should be. Or absolve people on the basis of political affiliations and or their proximity to power, certainly in the case of Hunter Biden, over and over and over again. So when the Secret Service comes out after just 11 days and then tells us, hey, sorry, we're just not going to be able to find anybody on this. We're going to move on to other things. You and I are sitting here going, horse hockey. This is as corrupt as anything. And the very fact that it took you a minute to say we're not going to be able to pursue this really tells us the whole story, Dennis.
Yeah, and I just can't believe the cameras haven't shown anything. It's just hard to believe. And furthermore, this proves that if this is legit, they really didn't find anything. This proves that the White House has serious security issues as far as sneaking anthrax or whatever they went into the White House.
Both scenarios are scary as hell. Either they're corrupt or they're just completely incompetent. And it's really, boy, that's not a good outcome either way. Dennis, thank you.
Thanks, Vince.
I appreciate the call. All right, hold tight. More ahead, including your calls. It is 3:20 now as the cocaine caper reaches a very dissatisfying conclusion. Although we do have a Congressman, Pat Fallon, coming up. He was involved in a behind-closed-doors briefing with the Secret Service today. He'll tell us all about it. Let's check. Apparently, the Secret Service told Congress today, and we'll get more details coming up with Representative Pat Fallon, that the Biden White House has had a couple of incidents of weed showing up inside the White House as well. Little wacky tobacco inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The Secret Service revealing some of those details. They said there were small quantities, though, so nobody was charged. Although I thought it was still against federal law. I guess Hunter gets away with that, too. Let's see here. We've got Mark calling in from Virginia Beach. Line 4. Mark, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. How are you doing?
I'm good, Mark. What's on your mind?
So, in 2019, I interviewed for the chief of facilities of the White House.
Really?
I'm going to personally tell you that you got to go through 5 secure checkpoints. The first one, you got to be, they got to call somebody to vouch that you're supposed to be there.
Uh-huh.
Then you go to another one. You get out. The dogs sniff your vehicle. You get out, open all the doors and the trunks and the hood and everything. And then you go through 2 more. Then you go to a guardhouse where you dump everything out of your pocket and you take your belt off. They scan it like at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
You walk through a metal detector, and they warn you. And then you're allowed to go into the White House. So, saying all that, no one gets in that White House unless you're scanned. Two, unless you belong in there and you are allowed to walk around all that.
Right, unless you are a protectee, unless you are a high-profile VIP person or a member of the family. Beyond that, the idea that it was a visitor who brought it in seems a very small chance relative to the way that these other guys are going in.
Vince, you have to sign in. And in the area that they were in or found this stuff, you got to know that there's security cameras everywhere. So they can't tell people that have been there and experienced all this that they can't identify who brought that mess in. They saw it on a security camera, saw it on their sign-in books. They know exactly who dropped it. It doesn't have to be Hunter, but they know who it is. If they wanted us to, how come they haven't fired somebody?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want us to know.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that there is no conversation about accountability either. It's like, well, we can't find out who it was, and they didn't tell us anything about they're changing their process. They're going to try and stop this from happening again. There are going to be consequences for allowing this illegal drug inside the White House. Nothing like that. No, it's just, sorry, we just couldn't find them. We're going to find out. Mark, I'm sorry, I just got to run, but we're going to find out in a moment. We'll get some more information on this when we're joined by Congressman Pat Fallon. He was briefed today by the United States Secret Service. We'll find out what they told him. Good afternoon to you. It's 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Simon Atiba joins us from 10A News Africa. The Biden White House looking to give him the boot. They don't like him. And then Kyle Seraphin, the FBI agent and host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast, will join us at 5 o'clock today. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Secret Service says there is just no way to know who left that cocaine in the White House, so the investigation is over. Nothing coming from that. For more on this, I want to turn to a man who was briefed behind closed doors by the Secret Service today, Congressman Pat Fallon. He represents Texas's 4th Congressional District, also a member of the House Oversight Committee, and joins us now. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Ben, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Give us a sense of this briefing today, whatever you can tell us. What went down in it? What kind of questions were asked, and what'd you learn?
Well, my biggest fear was walking into the SCIF, the secure area where the briefing occurred, that they were going to tell us, get this, that there was no evidence and they were closing the investigation. That was my biggest fear.
Sure.
And what exactly did they say? Just that. Very matter-of-factly, we don't have any evidence and we're closing the investigation. So, a couple things. It was a very small amount of cocaine. Like if you ever have a lapel pin for how about this? For your listeners out there that aren't cocaine users, unlike Hunter Biden and many others, there's these little bags where the lapel pin comes in.
Uh-huh.
That's also, of course, used with drug addicts. I've only seen it on television, but it was about size, very small, very trace amounts of cocaine. I mean, it was for personal use.
Did they bring the bag with them? Did they show you the bag? Is that how you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they took a picture. So we all were able to see a picture, and they told us, because that was several of the questions that I had, which was, how much cocaine are we talking about? How was it found? Where was it found? Et cetera.
Okay? When they say they took a picture, they put a quarter next to it for scale or something? When you look at a picture, you can't.
No, they didn't. They didn't. But, yeah, I know it's kind of the bag that you're talking about.
Got it.
Lapel pins that we have are the same kind of thing. So I had already asked some law enforcement experts that I know and trust from Texas about this. So I wanted to see, because it was my understanding at first that it was found in an envelope. That was not the case. It was simply a small little bag of plastic bag. Then I asked, what happened to the evidence? I mean, if this is presumably somebody that mistakenly left it there, wasn't wearing gloves in Washington in the summertime, so there's got to be fingerprints on it and maybe even DNA. So their response to that was, well, we had to test it, make sure it wasn't chemical or biological, and then we don't have any evidence. We don't, there's no DNA and there's no fingerprint. So when I went back to my experts like state troopers and, the Texas Rangers, with an impeccable reputation, and asked them, and they said during the process where you test for anthrax and such, perhaps, you'd radiate it. So that would destroy the DNA, but that does not destroy the fingerprints. So nobody can explain to me where the fingerprints went. And they implied that they were so concerned about it being anthrax that, maybe they just went ahead and destroyed the fingerprints.
Did they say, Congressman?
That doesn't make any sense.
Congressman, did they say that they actually sought fingerprints, or did they just say there are no fingerprints? What was the conversation like?
They did. Mm-hmm. So the Secret Service said, this isn't our purview, this isn't our expertise, so we handed it over to, ready for it, wait for it, the FBI. And they were going to test it in their labs. And magically it came back that there's just nothing. So my question to them then was, wait a minute, when you found it, you weren't sure what it was. So let's just say it was some chemical or biological agent. You're telling me that because it was so urgent for you to test it, that if you had to destroy any DNA and or fingerprints, you didn't care because you wanted to rule out the fact that it was anthrax or something similar. But in doing so, let's say it was anthrax, you just destroyed the evidence to find out who the damn terrorist was that left it in there.
Yes. Does that give them any pause? Are they going to reconsider their procedures?
And then they said, well, that wasn't us, that was the FBI. So the FBI was not in there. But the experts in Texas are telling me, Vince, that you can walk and chew gum. In other words, you can test it to make sure and rule out that it's any kind of, super dangerous chemical element that's going to kill people.
Yes.
On touching it or whatever, but also preserve the fingerprint. They're perplexed as to where the fingerprint is, or fingerprints. That should not have been destroyed. So it's incompetence at best and nefarious intent at worst.
I'm glad you emphasized that it was the FBI who combed for the evidence here specifically. The Secret Service hands over this bag of cocaine to the FBI. The FBI tests the bag, confirms it's cocaine, and then fails to turn up either fingerprints or DNA. This is the very agency that all of us are the most skeptical of, handling the evidence in a story that the nation's attention is on. And just miraculously, there's just no way to know who brought it. Is it true that they said that this was narrowed down to 500 people?
Yes, 600. Yeah, that was exactly what they told me.
600 people.
Because what they did was they went back. So let's be real clear about a few things. Because we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Because I think our friend, little Corinne Jean-Pierre there, we may have caught her in a bull-faced lie. Because I want to go back to specifically what she said over the past week or so about this incident. But this is about 10 feet outside of the Situation Room. So you and I and most Americans, I would imagine, would presume that this is what we're talking about here is one of the most secure areas in the country, right?
Right.
So you're telling me that somebody took an illegal powdered substance all the way there, put it in a cubby, and they said, well, Secret Service doesn't handle the cubbies. That's handled with the administration. Okay. And they can get it in there. It could have been something worse. They got to really button down there. I don't want to get into specifics to where I could get anybody into hot water as far as, including myself, with some of the secret stuff that's there. But nonetheless, what the hell is it doing there? And then the people that have access to that are high-level officials that what they call badged in. That they have the credentials and badges to get in there. And let's say I was one of those people. Let's say I was the assistant chief of staff. I might bring Vince, my friend, in for lunch. So that's what they're talking about here. We're not talking about wide open public tours of the West Wing. That doesn't happen in that particular area. So for her to insinuate, the press secretary, to insinuate that it was some tourist that left it, that is highly unlikely.
So the kind of person,
it's impossible.
The kind of person who might use the cubbies in question, in other words, would be perhaps a guest of somebody who was using the Navy mess, which is right in that same vicinity.
Yeah, because I could, let's say I was the assistant, or the chief of staff of the president. I could use the cubbies, but I don't have to give up my electronics unless I go into the situation room, and I might use them for that. So they don't know. We just don't know whose it is.
I know you said a moment ago you don't want to get into too many details about the security of the White House, which is why some of this is meant to be classified in order to keep the White House safe. But for a lot of us, you keep wondering, for such a secure facility, why there isn't video footage of this person putting the thing in the cubby. Like, if I was to set up a security system in the White House, I would think that the cubbies where people are putting things in and out of a box and then leaving that item behind would be a good place to put a camera. Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, I do, and I can't comment.
Okay, so that gets into the specifics. But this is what a lot of us are saying: cameras. Where's the footage of all of this? Because it seems it should be open and shut. Okay, all right. Well, I guess we'll have to leave that component of this here. Tell me about the reaction of the lawmakers in the room. Was everyone just flabbergasted or angry? I mean, what was the sentiment like?
Yeah, very angry. And when they said they don't know whose it is, I mean, there were 3 or 4 of us just, kind of laughed mockingly and exacerbated. Like, you got to be, what me. We're on the radio here, so there was some colorful language used. Because every time it seems like, I think my friend Nancy May said this, every time it seems like the White House is in hot water, magically there's just no evidence. Where there should, but when there should be.
Yes.
There should be here, and you just really hope that high level law enforcement, federal law enforcement, isn't as corrupt as it may appear that they are.
Well, it certainly seems that way, and we just went through a whole day yesterday. Yeah. That hearing yesterday with Chris Wray was just a litany of all of the corruptions of our of the justice system at the federal level, and it's so unfortunate, but it's just the reality. So all of us, of course, are skeptical today of this finding. Were there Democrats in the room with you as well?
There was. I remember 2 distinctly.
Did they all breathe a deep sigh of relief? Could you hear them exhale at the same time?
They probably did. But an interesting thing that we were told by the Secret Service too is they briefed the White House yesterday on what they were going to tell us today. The White House was concerned.
Yeah.
If you're getting to the bottom of it too, and you're like, hey, I don't know who's this. Like, imagine it, like, Vince, you have a party at your house, and you find a little bag in your coat. You would be like, I don't know who the hell this is. I would immediately be calling them because this isn't. I don't know who did it. But instead, they were thinking, hey, what are you going to tell Congress?
Yeah.
What you find?
Yeah, you'd get to the bottom of it if it was your house. And this is the American people's house, and they seem not to be able to get to the bottom of it. You mentioned that the White House press secretary, Corinne, may have lied last week to the American people. What do you mean by that?
Well, lied and or misled, and I think she does both on a regular basis. But and that's why I want to make sure and get my button down. But I remember reading, and that's why I want to confirm it, that she said she dismissed it at first, that it was found in a touristy area, by the library. And if she said that, now the way in which some people might have thought, because it went over a scanner apparently, and then what they were talking about with the library was the library where drugs where they test things. So I can see how a reporter might have gotten that wrong, but she didn't get it wrong because they knew immediately. Everybody in the White House knew immediately exactly where that was found. So anybody trying to obfuscate or say it wasn't found 10 feet outside of the Situation Room that works in the White House was lying, because they all knew right away. There was no doubt as to where it was found.
Yeah, she placed special emphasis, I remember, last week on the fact that the family wasn't there, that that Biden was traveling, and so she wanted to instantly absolve Hunter Biden of any relationship to this cocaine, even before anybody had asked about it. And I do believe, I believe you're right. I think she did suggest or say out loud that this was a highly trafficked area of the White House.
That is not true. Now, people will argue, I'm sure Democrats, 600 people in 3 days isn't highly trafficked? No, when you say highly trafficked, I immediately think of public tours on the East Wing. That's highly trafficked. This is not. This is allegedly one of the most secure rooms and areas in the country. That's not highly trafficked.
Right. Okay. Well, is there anything else from today's briefing that you think we should know about?
I think just that, either our law enforcement, remember we grew up, the Secret Service and the FBI, they had brands that you respected and you admired. And those are so tarnished, particularly the FBI. But the Secret Service, How can you handle something like this and not take great care to preserve evidence? And then I did ask them too specifically. It was found in a particular box, box number 50. I said, was that dusted for fingerprints? And they told me that it was, and they couldn't find anything. Because my law enforcement friends in Texas said,
yes,
you should definitely do that, because even if there's several, it's going to narrow it down.
Of course, a smart point. Yeah, it was the obviously the box that it was found in, dusted for fingerprints. They said that produced nothing either. Okay, so here, by the way, I found the audio for you. This is Coringe last week saying this is a highly trafficked area.
Just clarify for us where exactly inside the West Wing the substance was discovered.
I'm not going to get into specifics. All I can say is when people visit the West Wing, there is the area of the West Wing where it is highly traveled, and that is what happens. People come through this particular area. It's highly traveled. I'm just not going to get into specifics. I'm not going to get into, not going to get ahead of the Secret Service, and so I'll let them speak to that.
There are a couple of primary entrances into the West Wing. There's the one with which we're all familiar, right outside the driveway where the Marine stands when the president's in the West Wing, and there's another entrance off West Executive Avenue. Can you explain which entrance we're talking about?
I'm going to let the Secret Service speak to that.
Okay, anyway, so she did say, to your point, this was a highly traveled area. You're saying that is not true.
No, so it was found in the foyer in these cubby holes, so these little boxes that were put in a few years ago, okay? And it's the primary entrance for, if the Secretary of State were to visit the White House, that's where they would go in. In fact, they even said, the Secret Service said, when the Vice President comes, she uses that entrance. So conceivably, it could be her coke. I'm not saying it is, but if anybody that uses that, it could be. And that's the thing, like, I would want to rule everybody out. If it were my White House in my administration, and I worked there or I was the boss,
yes,
I would want to immediately get to the bottom of who the hell it is, get that bum out, make sure they never have access to the White House again.
All right, so Congressman Pat Fallon, my takeaway is they did not rule out Kamala Harris today.
Yes, that's one way you could say it.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, Vince.
All right, that's Congressman Pat Fallon. He got a briefing from the Secret Service today. Very dissatisfying, the outcome of all of this, they say. We just have no idea who brought the cocaine. But I really love, and I want to emphasize what he did, which is, guess who handled the evidence? Guess who dusted it for fingerprints? Guess who sought the DNA? It was the FBI. It was the FBI who handled all of that. What does that tell you? So far, and of course they're workshopping. They're coming up with their print edition as we speak for tomorrow morning. On their website, they say, snort lived. White House cocaine investigation concluded. No suspect ID'd. Snort lived. Our friend Donna's calling in from Frederick on line 1. Donna, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. I've been thinking about this, and in all honesty, when you look at the big picture, this favors the right in so many ways. It just reminds us how criminal the left has been. And I'm sorry to all the Democrat voters out there. I feel bad that it's gotten to this. And I'm not saying all Republicans are saints, but it sure is enough to make you think twice about who's in there, why they're in there, if they were selected versus being elected. And then to just finalize my point here.
Yeah.
It's the cover-up that always gets you in the end.
Donna, do you remember when Donald Trump announced Amy Coney Barrett was to be the nominee to join the United States Supreme Court? He did an event in the Rose Garden in 2020, and it was the heat of COVID, they said, and that event was blamed for spreading COVID among a number of top government officials, and the media, I'm not the first to point this out today. I've seen other people pointing it out, but the media went through forensically and gave us images and numbers and all sorts of graphs and charts of who was where at what time in the Rose Garden and how they probably picked up COVID. It was the deepest examination that anyone's ever done, other than, say, a proctologist, into what is exactly going on, Donna. And in this case, not so much in the hunt for the cocaine. Donna, thank you.
Amazing times.
Amazing times we live in. No, the Biden White House, illegal drugs. We close that investigation in minutes. Coming up, Simon Atiba, moments away. He's been inside the White House. We'll find out how much coke he's brought.